My stepsister's fiance broke into my home to steal my late mother's wedding dress. I am 29 years old, and until recently, I never imagined my life would turn into something that felt like a twisted family drama mixed with a crime story. But that is exactly what happened when my stepsister's fiance broke into my house to steal my late mother's wedding dress. Looking back now, I realized that this situation did not come out of nowhere and was the result of years of tension, jealousy, and unresolved resentment that had been building for a very long time. To understand how things reached this point, I need to go back to the beginning. My parents' relationship started out like a typical romantic story, but they became parents very young and struggled to balance work, money, and raising a child. Their constant arguments eventually led to a divorce when I was a teenager. Despite everything, they made a conscious effort to stay respectful and friendly toward each other for my sake, and I always appreciated that. Years later, when I was in college, my mother met a man named Carlos, who she truly believed was the love of her life. They fell in love quickly, got engaged, and although I had mixed feelings about my mom remarrying, I kept them to myself because I wanted her to be happy. That was when I met Carlos's daughter, Amelia, who was going to become my stepsister. From the very first moment, it was obvious that Amelia did not like me at all. She treated me with cold indifference at best and open hostility at worst. And no matter how hard I tried to be polite and friendly, she always found a way to make me feel unwelcome. Family gatherings became painfully awkward, filled with forced smiles, tense silences, and passive-aggressive comments directed at me. When my mom and Carlos finally got married in a small backyard ceremony, Amelia did not even bother hiding her contempt. She rolled her eyes during the vows, sighed loudly, and acted as if the entire event was beneath her. Over time, her behavior only got worse. Every visit home turned into a series of insults about my appearance, my weight, my life choices, or my achievements. Carlos tried to discipline her and demand apologies, but nothing ever truly changed. Eventually, to protect my mental health, I started spending holidays with my biological father instead, even though he lived far away. Those trips became my escape from the constant negativity and tension. Everything changed when my mother was diagnosed with stage 3 ovarian cancer while I was in college. I rushed home immediately, terrified of losing her, and those months were some of the hardest of my life. We went through endless hospital visits, treatments, and emotional breakdowns together. During that time, Amelia showed a shocking lack of empathy. She did not help, did not support my mother, and one night when she saw me crying outside my mom's bedroom, she smirked and told me there was nothing I could do anyway. Later, she even sent me disturbing posts about what dying cancer patients look like, which felt unimaginably cruel. Despite her suffering, my mother remained strong and courageous until the end, but after several months, she passed away. The grief was overwhelming, and I felt like my entire world had collapsed. When the time came to read my mother's will, it was already clear that her assets would go to me, her only biological child, as had been discussed openly while she was still alive. She also left me several family heirlooms, including her wedding dress, which held immense sentimental value for me. Amelia completely lost control when she realized she was not included in the inheritance. She accused my mother of being selfish, demanded that I share everything with her, and caused a huge scene. Carlos firmly shut her down, and my father advised me to move my belongings and my mother's possessions out of Carlos's house immediately to prevent Amelia from stealing anything. Over time, I finished college, started working, and eventually bought my own place. I kept my mother's wedding dress safely stored, and whenever I missed her, holding that dress felt like holding a piece of her. Years later, Carlos called to tell me that Amelia was engaged. Surprisingly, I felt genuinely happy for her and agreed to meet for dinner, hoping that she had matured. At first, the evening went smoothly, and she seemed pleasant, but then she casually mentioned that she wanted to wear my mother's wedding dress for her own wedding. She spoke as if she was entitled to it and even offered to buy it for me. I immediately refused, explaining that the dress was irreplaceable and deeply connected to my mother's memory, but she dismissed my feelings, called me selfish and claimed my mother would have wanted her to have it. The argument escalated quickly, and I left, realizing she was not going to let this go. On my father's advice, I installed security cameras and an alarm system, even though it felt extreme at the time. Not long after, while I was at work, I received multiple alerts that my alarm had been triggered. When I checked the footage, I saw a masked man inside my home. I panicked, called the police immediately, and rushed home. When I arrived, the police had already arrested the intruder, who had been injured by my dog while trying to flee. To my absolute shock, the man was Amelia's fiance. He admitted that Amelia had pressured him into breaking into my house to steal my mother's wedding dress. After that, Amelia and her relatives began harassing me, demanding that I drop the charges, claiming that families should forgive each other. I refused and filed a lawsuit instead, sending the security footage to anyone who tried to guilt trip me. In court, I was awarded compensation for the damage. Her fiancé received jail time for the break-in, and both of them were given a restraining order against me. 6 months later, my life is finally peaceful again. Amelia and her husband stay far away from me, and I feel safe knowing that I stood my ground and protected my home and my mother's memory, because some boundaries should never be crossed, no matter how much pressure comes from family. All right, moving on to the next story. My friend's stepmom and stepbrother tried to deport my daughter, so I would date him. I'm a 30-year-old single mother, and what happened to me recently is still hard to believe. My daughter is 3 years old, biracial. I'm white, and her father is Maori from New Zealand. I have a close college friend, let's call her Kate. She's genuinely kind, but her stepmother, Pam, and her stepbrother, Kyle, are toxic beyond belief. Pam used to work in an Amazon warehouse and now lives on disability benefits. Her husband, Kate's father, Kenny, is a truck driver. Kyle is unemployed and has never held a job for long. The family is originally from West Virginia, but moved to Pennsylvania a few years ago. In July last year, I organized an engagement party for Kate and her fiancé, Jack, at my family's vacation home in Catskill. The wedding was scheduled for December. Until that point, I barely knew Pam and Kyle. Little did I know, they had been following me, my family, and my friends on Instagram and Facebook. According to Kate, Pam was jealous of our posts, our trips, dinners, parties, work events, boat outings, everything. So, Pam demanded to be invited to the party, along with Kyle, so they could mingle with our friends, my family, and my colleagues from the museum and university. Since they had no social life, I reluctantly agreed, hoping it would keep them from bothering Kate further. A little backstory on Kyle. Kate told me that Pam had spoiled him his entire life. He was homeschooled in elementary school because Pam didn't like that the school punished him for bullying and other antisocial behaviors. She became furious when the school suggested he might have mental health or behavioral issues. Kenny could discipline him, but Pam punished Kate for the smallest things. Kyle grew up thinking he was entitled to everything, that his actions had no consequences. He had no friends, no social skills, and no understanding of boundaries. At the party, Kyle and Pam looked out of place. Pam tried to promote Kyle to my friends, while Kyle was awkward and couldn't hold a conversation. Then, Kyle started flirting with me. I kept it polite at first, but then he crossed a line. He called my daughter a half-breed and told me I should get rid of her so I could date him. I lost it. I screamed at both Kyle and Pam, telling them to get out of my family's home. Pam got furious, accused me of disrespecting her son, demanded an apology, and even started yelling at my guests who were judging them. I called them out as racist and misogynistic. They finally left when they realized no one supported them, and we were ready to call the police. After that, Pam and Kyle started texting me and Kate, whining about how humiliated they felt. Pam called my guests snobs and demanded apologies. Both of them insisted I go on a date with Kyle and give him a chance. I blocked Pam, but forgot to block Kyle. Then, in late March, ICE agents showed up at my family's Upper East Side home. Pam and Kyle had reported my daughter as an illegal immigrant, even though she's a U.S. citizen born in Boston and I am her mother. I immediately contacted my grandfather's law firm. 2 lawyers arrived, and I showed ICE all the proper documentation. Kate revealed that Pam and Kyle tried to get my daughter deported because they didn't want a non-white child in the family. Pam wanted me to date her son and hoped this would somehow force me into a relationship with Kyle. We decided to sue them. Our lawyers sent a formal complaint to the Office of the Inspector General because knowingly filing a false report with ICE is a federal crime. DHS would decide whether to pursue it separately. Kate and Jack initially wanted nothing to do with Pam and Kyle, but cutting them off entirely was impossible without also losing contact with her father. Kenny tried to keep peace with Pam, often telling Kate to comply just to avoid conflict. Slowly, he's learning to set boundaries. Kate decided to maintain minimal contact with Pam and Kyle and promised to alert me if they tried anything. A few days after the ICE incident, Kyle contacted me again from a new number. He demanded I give my daughter up for adoption or to her father, repeating that they didn't want a biracial child in the family and that he wanted to remove her before we could be together. I was too angry to deal with it and told him any further communication would go through our lawyers. Pam and Kyle continued calling and leaving bizarre voicemails, demanding I speak to them. Pam called me a bad potential stepmother. Kate warned me they were spiraling. She also said Pam complained she couldn't afford another lawsuit since she's on benefits, and Kyle is unemployed. Kyle is obsessed with me, and Pam wants the perfect daughter-in-law to take care of them. Kenny has tried to intervene, but they don't listen. Our lawyers arranged a settlement meeting with Rob, Pam's older brother, and her attorney. My father, and our lawyers met with Rob, Pam, and Kyle. Rob was polite and professional, but Pam immediately started demanding I withdraw the lawsuit and start acting like she was going to be Kyle's wife. She said I should be grateful her son was interested in a single mother. She also insulted my daughter repeatedly, claiming they deserved everything I have more than she does. Kyle demanded I give him control of my finances and my daughter, and that I date him in exchange for letting me work. I laughed in disbelief. He lives with his mom. Kyle tried to approach me, but Rob and my father blocked him. Security was called. Kyle fought with the guards and staff, shouting incoherently. Pam tried to grab a phone from the receptionist when she called the police. They eventually fled in the elevator before police arrived. We filed for a restraining order against Pam and Kyle, so all communication goes through lawyers. Even after the office incident, they continued harassing me with calls and fake accounts, demanding I fix their son's life. We followed legal advice and stopped responding, documenting everything for our lawyers. I took a week off to Mexico to relieve stress and returned to host dinner with friends. Kate apologized again for her stepmother and stepbrother's behavior, and I reassured her I didn't blame her. Recently, Kyle was arrested at a Kentucky shopping center after a fight with customers and employees, and he resisted arrest. So, besides charges in New York, he now faces new legal trouble. Pam is still bitter, owing debts, and Kenny is paying legal fees out of his savings to settle with me. Kate and Jack are focusing on their wedding and move to the West Coast next year. Update. For those who think this is fake, I get it. It reads like a Jerry Springer episode. But all of this really happened. Pam has untreated schizophrenia, and Kyle has a history of antisocial behavior. We now have a protective order, and a settlement is in place to finally close this nightmare. Thanks so much for watching. If you found this story crazy or shocking, drop a comment below with your thoughts. I'd love to hear what you think. Don't forget to like the video and subscribe for more unbelievable storytime content.